guys, it's Chase with Star Tutors again, and we are here to film an SAT reading video in real time. I'm gonna give my absolute best to complete this test. 52 questions, 65 minutes. It's certainly the test where I feel the most drained, so we'll see how it goes. It might go horribly, particularly because I'm gonna try my best to give you guys some strategies as I'm going through it. Now, the good news for me is that there's not a ton of strategy with the reading section. It's a very dense reading, it's hard reading, but again, the good news is that there's not a ton of strategy to it. The reading section is the first section out of the gate on the SAT, so it's section number 1 out of 4. And one of the things that we always encourage students to do is to make sure that you do some warm-up problems before the test starts. The reason that this is important, so warm-up problems, whether that be in the car, and we'll talk about that in a second, but do warm-up problems before the test starts. Actually start reading. Do some reading comprehension before you get to the actual exam, because this is dense. It's 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. That's not fun. You get no 16, 17, 18-year-old wakes up every day and is like, you know what, I cannot wait right now to do this SAT exam. If you do love it, then that's great. You're probably doing the stuff that I'm already talking about. But if you don't, I want you guys to make sure that you're doing some practice reading, some form of reading comprehension before you get into the test. Because if you don't, then the first passage goes, we see this with students all the time in our classroom programs, the first test goes, or the first passage rather, goes terribly because you're just not warmed up. You're not ready to go on a Saturday morning to read a very dense reading passage, and especially if there's 5 of them. Okay, so we don't want to come out slow out of the gate. We want to make sure that we're ready to go. So what we've done is we've created a tutoring app. So we put all of we write all of this, all of our tutors and teachers write our SAT tutorial. It has practice problems that are very comparable to what you'll see on the test, but most importantly, it will show you very specific question types like punctuation on the writing and language section, or main idea questions on reading with practice passages, and maybe most importantly, we put it all onto your phone, okay? So all of this is now on your phone. All you have to do is search Star U in the App Store or on Google Play, or you can go to www.staru.co. Owen will put that somewhere around me. So you guys, if you access the app and you're doing practice problems while you're sitting there on your phone on the way to the test, you can start to think about what you're about to do, right? It's not just like, oh, I guess I'm going to do this today. It's, okay, look, I got some practice problems. I'm looking at this. I'm doing some reading comprehension, and now I'm going to start the test. So any like nervousness or any second guessing we have about the reading section, that's out the door before we actually have questions that matter. So I highly encourage you guys to download and register on the app. It's 100% free. So you're not gonna get charged anything for doing it. It's 100% free. It is designed. We want students to not have an excuse as to why they forget to do something in the morning, right, on the test day. We want you guys all to have access to this so that when you get into the test, you are ready to go. If you've watched this video, if you have the app downloaded, you're doing practice problems, when they say go, it's not just like, oh, now I'm gonna go, I guess. It's, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to do this. That's our goal. That's what we want you guys to be doing. And then once the test is over, forget about it, right? Forget about it. Don't do it. You don't need to think about it again. It's Saturday afternoon, and now that's great. The sun's still going to be rising, right? The sun's still rising. If you live in a cold place, I apologize. We're filming this in LA, so the sun's still rising here. It will rise again, right? All that kind of stuff. The day will go on is the point I'm trying to make. The day will go on. So you just got to wipe that out of your mind. You just keep staying focused, okay? So the most important thing on the reading section, somewhere along the line, somebody got it in their head that there are all these strategies going on with the reading comprehension section. There are certain things you certainly want to look out for and certain things you want to be doing while you read, but generally speaking, the reason it's called the reading test is because they want you to read. They don't want you to, I can't stress this enough, that if you guys read and you really read for content and focus, you will do really well on this test. And what we're going to focus on today is I'm going to show you guys at number 42 is, or 41, somewhere in there, depending on the test. 41, 42, 43, somewhere in there will be leading into the last passage on the reading section. And what I want you guys to be focused on is even if you guess every letter down on that, and I'll show you how this works at the end, but if you were to get every question right before 42 and then you guess answers, choices down, you can still get an over a 700 on the reading, writing, and language test. So the idea is if you really read for content, you don't have any inconsistencies because you're going to read and you're going to be focused all the way through. And then even if you have to guess on a few questions at the end, you've gotten all of the ones before that right because you were really focused on reading. So I'm going to put this into practice hopefully today. 65-minute test, that's a long one. I don't envy you for that matter. But it's really, really important that you guys start to work some of this stuff into your own strategy. Don't take everything I say as the word that you have to listen to it, right? Think about what I'm doing, see what works for me, and then see if you can implement that into your own strategy to see if you can improve your score. I really, truly believe that the reason they call it the reading test is not because they were trying to throw something at you where now you're supposed to read line numbers first and don't actually read. The SAT wants you to read. It's called the reading test. They want you to be a sufficient reading comprehender, if that's even a word. They want you to be a sufficient reading comprehender before you go to college, and that's why this test is so important. So, without further ado, I'm going to set my timer here. This is a very dense passage. I got to stay focused all the way through. I'm going to try to underline. I'm going to try to stay focused as I go, and then I'm just going to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Okay? So, without further ado, my 65 minutes for the 52 questions on the reading test starts now. Okay, and Owen will put the timer somewhere down below me. Okay, let's see. So these guys are, so something here is that they are, it sounds like they're from Panama, or the woman that she's visiting is from Panama, Celia. Just as she had the first anything capitalized, guys, generally is going to come up in the questions. There's just not that much text, right? If we're focused all the way through, there's only 90 lines of text for 10 questions. Theoretically, a question is coming up every 9 lines, right? Celia has boys. Enrique. Nothing at all like his brother. She only has one daughter who Celia's talking to. Something is interesting about to Evers, right? Because they're embarrassed. She's somewhat embarrassed by it. Okay, so this is kind of a heartfelt, right? The tone is certainly positive, guys. So I always like to try to pay attention to tone. tone, I think, is generally positive. They're talking about their families. It's horrible handwriting. Please forgive the handwriting. So the description of Celia's apartment in lines 9 through 20 is primarily intended to. Let's go back to 9 through 20 and just read again. A fuller home felt, embroidered pillows on the couches, a curious stack of milk glass bowls, and borders from the windowsill, unframed posters of Panama Beach in the walls, possibly with a guy who don't know the great conditions, almost hit the cracks in the walls and soon got at the windows. Okay, so her apartment has a lot of things going on. Evoke a sense of coziness and comfort, reflect the hectic and unpredictable nature of life in Celia's buildings, told the goods in the United States, no. So Celia is an avid collector, no. I think it's to evoke a sense of coziness and comfort, right? Because it's saying that all this stuff, curious like glass bowls and windows, going back to what I think is a positive tone, unframed posters of Panama beaches, a box of rinsed bottles on the floor, collection of spices, the great accumulation almost hit the cracks in the walls and stains on the floor, and the scratches that clouded the windows. I loved how fuller home felt, right? So that just sounds very positively toned. If I read that and I know that coming out of the passage I think the tone was positive, then I gotta believe that's a positive answer choice, and I think that's right. It's not hectic. That's right. Hectic and unpredictable. Those don't reflect what the whole thing was talking about. According to the passage, which fact about Celia's neighbors is there know before she visits Celia's apartment. Wants to be a priest. I think she said. I think we read that, right? She mentioned. This is something that Celia mentioned, and that's also something. So let's see. I think it was. She said that, which was hardly news. I assumed as much when I met her. Okay, so I remembered that part because they were so vivid on her. She said I remembered as much when I met her. They talked about her for so long, guys, that what are the chances that comes up in 10 questions in 90 lines, and they spent 5 lines talking about one person, this woman Quisqueya, right? They talk about her the entire time, so why wouldn't that come up in a pretty significant way in the questions? Okay, so we really pay attention to that. Like I really read for comprehension, not just because I was trying to take a test, because I wanted to know what the passage was saying, so could I answer some questions. Everybody overcomplicates this section. Yes, it's dense. Yes, it's not fun to read about this stuff, but just read it. Kind of, bite the towel and just say, like, I'm going to do it and get through it, and then it's not that hard. Which Celia says there not to let Quisqueya put you off. She most nearly means, don't let her put you off. Impose on her. Don't let her put you off. No. Be deceived. I think it's be offended. Don't let her put you off. But it could be D. I'm going to leave that one. I think it's A. Which choice best describes the narrator's relationship with Celia's sons? The narrator knows Celia's sons, but they're friends of the narrator's daughter. The narrator attends school. Person, which is, yeah, it's got to be C. I remember that, guys. Again, if you're just reading, that was something I just read. It says it like, I recognized him from the store or something. The photo were 2 boys whom I recognized from the store. Buzzed hair, and Enrique used next to his brother's arms across the paint Shadova. What about you? Do you have... she stood and lifted her frame. This is from last summer. Doesn't she say something? Yeah, she recognizes Mayor from the store, so I think that's Mayor. She knows. Which choice best provides evidence? Let's see. Let's go through these. 58 says, if 2 boys. Oops. So your son, he was born here. That doesn't provide evidence that she knows Mayor from the store. 59 through 62. I think that was where I just read that, right? Both of them were born away at college, and there's Mayor who you met, right? Who you met, Mayor who you met. I wasn't even reading that correctly. That's where it gives that away. Describes the relationship of the sons is who you met. I think this one's got to be. This one's got to be B. Let me just confirm 65. Yeah, 74 through 75 is not it. I think it's got to be B. That says whom you met, and the other one, right? So here counts Rafa's joke primarily in order to 61 through 64. Let's go back. We met. Rafa thinks we might have taken the wrong baby home from the hospital. She forced a smile just a joke, of course. Okay, because remember her 2 boys are very different. So she was saying that one may have been taken home on accident from the hospital. Endear Rafa to the narrator, impress the narrator with her quick wit. No, she's not trying to impress. It's very comforting. Stress how different her sons are. Yes. right? Yeah, it's not a tense situation, guys. That's too harsh of a tone. I think it's C. Stress how different her sons are, right? If one was taken home from the hospital, it means that it's just not your kid. So I think that's got to be C on 6. Based on the passage, it's most reasonable to infer that Celia knows the answer to which question whether his family with the narrator visits her apartment. How many children does the narrator have? Where does the narrator's daughter go to school? What is the question? Most reasonable to infer that Celia knows the answer. How many? So she doesn't know where the daughter went to school because remember they were talking about that. How many children does she have? I think she says you only have one. Do you have other children besides your daughter? She doesn't know that, right? She doesn't know where the narrator's daughter goes to school because she asks that. What is the narrator's profession? Let's just see if we can find the other one while we're at. How long does the narrator family live in the United States? So we're looking for questions, right? Because they say, isn't that what the Americans say? It's your son who was born here. That's the most natural state, right? I'm going to leave that one for right now, guys. Oh, never mind. Okay, guys, so this is a good example of a question. Now they're going to give me where I should be looking. So I didn't even see that, but now I'm given that, so I can answer 2 questions. And she's going, see a trade-off as though she didn't want to say it out loud. Oh, but never mind, guys. She's going to Evers. So that one, that's got to be it, right? That's got to be A. Celia's indignation to 82 through 84. I just didn't read. I wasn't even listening to my own advice. She looked like she didn't know what to say next. I felt the mixture of embarrassment and indignation. No. Win here. I think it's got to be A. And I do think that she knew she didn't want to say it, right? So where does this go? It is B here, guys. I circled the wrong answer because I remember her saying that she goes to Evers, but it says right here she looked like she didn't know what to. She said, and she's going to. She trailed off as though she didn't want to say it out loud. So she knew where she was going. She didn't want to say it out loud for a reason. Based on the passage, it can be reasonably inferred that Celia tells the narrator about leaving Panama, 91 through 96, in order to 91 through 96. I'm sort of Celia giving you. We left Panama, it was falling apart after, and I thought it would be better for the boys to grow up here. Parents do for their children. It's got to be. So that's got to be a. It's encouraging, right? My name of reasons they both agreed to consult an narrator, but trying to see who's profit. Empathizes with her. I think it's got to be D. Right? She empathizes. It's amazing. She's empathizing. I think that word perfectly sums that up, right? She's saying that I understand how you feel. Encourage narrator to share a story of immigration. No. So it gives me for a long time. I've heard it's a good school. I hope so. It's why we came, right? So then she's empathizing. Yeah, I understand why you came because I've been there too. Ninth primarily serves to the benediction. That was a positive thing. Benediction, from there we were friends. Stress the importance of religion. They don't mention that one time. Imply the interview series. It's not that they don't mention that one time with the religious thing. It's just that they don't mention in this way in that part of the emphasis. I think it's got to be C, right? How meaningful Celia's benediction is a religious term, and it's very prominent religious term. Even if you don't know that, that whole tone of that last part suggests, I think, that the narrator is very happy that she met Celia. And so that would emphasize how meaningful gestures. That means that it's very powerful to you. So I think that's got to be right. Let's keep moving, but I think we did okay there. I think we got all those ones right. I hope. Let's see what our time is. Come on. Okay, so we're doing okay on time. We got to keep moving a little bit faster, but voters need to understand the precise details of complex policies. What's the state positions on these issues, but they're not often reasoned. So you take hard intellectual work. Most citizens cannot stick explanation. So this is about extreme. It's like extreme thought. These are all things that they tested them on. They rated their own understanding. This is how the experiments seem to be carried out. It seems like an important. They would be humbled by the result. That's what his hypothesis was. It became more moderate, being forced to articulate. Trying to sell the policy. So the difference between selling the policy and, in fact, talking about one's views can often strengthen because it's the slow cognitive work. So they talk about, okay, so complexities of it all. Polarization tends to reinforce itself. That seems a very prominent sentence. They hang out with people like themselves. Okay. That makes sense to me. So basically what they're saying is that if you really think about issues, this is part of the reason why the SAT wants to give you these passages. When you really think about these issues, perhaps you're less inclined to have such a position because generally, again, we don't need to get into that too much, but it's a thoughtful piece, I think. A central idea discussed in the passage, particular reasons for holding an opinion can cause people to decide that they are wrong. I don't think that they're wrong. Describing an issue in detail can make people more moderate in their views about the issue. That's got to be it. Process of describing an issue in detail. People not truly understanding complex ideas. No, the process of describing an issue in detail can make people more moderate in their views about the issue, right? Because it humbles them. Over the course of the passage, the main focus shifts from a discussion of a long-standing problem to a report that discredits Pernod. It doesn't discredit anything. He's not saying that it's wrong that they strengthen their opinion by trying to sell it. He's just saying that tends to happen. An introduction of a phenomenon to a description of experiments concerning the phenomenon and a recommendation based on the results of the experiments. Okay, so the one thing that throws me off here a little bit, guys, is I got to confirm that I like the answer choice B, but I just want to see polarization. People are unaware. So a recommendation might be this, but forcing the candidates to provide concrete and elaborate plans might be a start. It gives citizens a starting place. That sounds like a recommendation to me. I think it's got to be B here. An explanation of two competing theories for certain. No, it's not an explanation of two competing theories. It's one theory that he tests in two different ways. So it's two tests, right? Description of experiments. Yeah, I think it's got to be B here, guys. 12. As used in line 9, illusion. So guys, if you're ever running out of time, these questions kind of obviously should be used. These ones tend to be a little bit easier to answer quickly. Psychological scientists have a name for this easy, automatic, simplistic thing, the illusion of explanatory depth. We strongly believe that we understand complex matters when in fact we are clueless, and these false extreme beliefs shape our preferences, judgments. So the illusion of explanatory depth means that it's not actually real. The but I don't know about that one, guys. I want to say misconception. The misconception. But that doesn't sound. I'm going to come back to 13. I don't feel great about that. When I have time to reread it, maybe. Let's see, 14 as used in line 14. And again, guys, just be totally okay moving on from questions. Okay, we can come back to it, but I didn't feel comfortable with that question. So if I just skip it, even if I miss it at the end and I have to guess, that was one that I didn't feel comfortable on, but I'm not letting it affect the next couple questions. Okay, so where in fact we are clued, and these false and extreme beliefs shape our preferences. So they mold, or they model, they plan, they influence, they shape, they influence, I think. Okay, I think it's influence, they influence our preferences. Yeah, they modify, I think they shape our preferences. Yeah, they influence. I think that's right. The main purpose of the fourth paragraph, 26 through 42. 26 through 42. They started by recruiting group of volunteers to explain, how strongly they felt about each issue and also. So explain that first part of the experiment. I bracketed that for a reason. Provide support for a theory, defend the need for research. Specifics of an experiment. It's definitely outline the specifics of the experiment. I even said that, I think, if you guys go back and rewatch the video, I think I said, like, oh, this is talking about how the experiment is done. If the issue is cap and trade, for example, first, it's explaining how the experiment is done, I think. They're not discussing, they're not doing this, they're not defending anything, they're just explaining what that experiment did. Pass implies that when conducting his laboratory work, Fernbach would have been most surprised by which finding. No link was found between the complexity of an issue and the strength of the volunteer's position. After volunteers were asked to analyze the complexity of their understanding of it did not increase. No. Volunteers were asked to list the reasons for endorsing a particular policy. The reasons were generally unaffected by the exercise. Endorsing means selling, so I don't think that's right. When volunteers were asked questions about complex issues, those with the most extreme views were found to have the best overall understanding of them. So the past implies that when connecting this left friend would have most been surprised by which finding. When volunteers were asked to accompany those with the most extreme views were found to have the best overall understanding of them. Yeah, I think it's D, because that's exactly the opposite of what he found. So let's go back 26 through 30. Start by recruiting a group of volunteers and asking them to state their position of writing from national flat text. How strongly they felt with the issue. I don't think that's right. If 34 through 48 and 39 through 42. Okay, how it is implemented 39 through 30. Okay, 39. They were not asked to provide but only for idea, detailed description of mechanics. I don't know. I don't like any of those either, guys. Fernbach's position is D. That sounds like it's going to be the right answer, but I didn't read what numbers they were. Lines 40 through 44 through 49. Suggestion of forced money dress, just how little they know. Yeah, I think that's got to be it. The answer choice D. And look, guys, it kind of gives it away. We lucked out with 17 because it kind of gives it away with just even the little context it gives. Based on the past objection, most likely reduced political assumptions about sin. No, that's definitely wrong. Himself, maybe promoting awareness training. Doesn't say anything about charities. No, because they would dig in on why requiring colleges. I think that's this one. 65. Because they're all talking about detail. Explain it in detail. So we're not just getting over the top on everything. 65 through 60. Continue to think they're supposed to remain extreme in their passion for their positions. Let's see, 72 through 74. I think it's the last one, right? It just kind of says that. Somebody takes, right? It's a starting place. Yeah, I think that's what it says. According to Figure 1. So these ones are usually pretty straightforward, guys. According to Figure, which statement best shows a change in the mean self-ratings of the volunteers? Mean self-ratings after they were asked to analyze and explain a policy. So after they were asked to analyze and explain something in Figure 1, we just look at Figure 1 because that's what it says to do. Analyze and explain the policy before the task. List reasons for or against the policy. So when they were asked to analyze before the task, they were still pretty extreme. After the task, it looks like they were less extreme. After they were asked to analyze and explain rather than support, they became more extreme. They became more reluctant to justify. They became less confident. They became less interested in understanding the policy. Let me go back up here real quick. Task. Volunteers mean some for understanding a policy. So after they were asked to analyze and explain, it sounds like they weren't as confident in their understanding. They were less confident in their understanding. That became, there we go, boom. According to passage in Figure 2, making list of reasons for or against the policy has little impact on it. Has little impact. Making list of reasons for or against the policy has little impact on individuals. Making a list of reasons for or against the policy. Right? You're not understanding it because it's your opinion. You're not actually understanding what's going on. It's your interest in the issue probably increases, your opinion about people holding different views, that probably goes hand in hand, but like, it's got to be A, I think, for that one. I hope I didn't make a simple mistake, but I feel pretty good. I'll come back if I have time at the end. It is well known that some animal species. Okay, guys, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm in a good position, especially because I feel like that was a pretty hard passage. Yeah, I feel like that was a pretty hard passage. Some animal species you can't much have predators, individuals that are able to blend and destroy survival and reproduce and thus increase their fitness. Okay, for those that are studying science and biology right now, this is Darwin's theory of evolution, right? Survival of the fittest. This may seem like a good strategy and fairly common in the animal kingdom, but I've never heard of a plant doing the same thing. Pigmentation. So they're asking so survival of the fittest in animals is well documented, but they're asking about plants now. Do plants change their leaf type so they don't get eaten? All that kind of stuff. So this plant doesn't need, so the green pigment, I don't know if you guys know this from biology, the green pigment in plants is actually what allows them to create photosynthesis. Yeah, there we go, photosynthesis. And these plants don't need that. So that changes the game for them. It in coloration much like fungi or animals. So it says photosynthetic. I'm an idiot. Using a large population of experimentally removed dried bracts that cover 3 to 5 centimeters tall stems and flower buds of these brown color of the leaf litter. Measure the reflectance patterns. Camouflage. These bracts on the, so bracts are what? Deep purple stems. They create a camouflage. Making the plant blended with surrounding the bract reflectance pattern closely resembled that of the leaf litter and both differ from that of the reproductive stem and flowers underneath the bracts. Furthermore, they experimentally demonstrated this camouflage actually worked to hide the plant from its predators and increased its fitness. Intact bracts suffered only a quarter of the herbivore damage and produced a higher percentage of mature fruits. We've shown that animals use cryptic coloration as a defense mechanism to visually which facilitates predator avoidance. We have now experimentally demonstrated that plants have evolved a similar strategy toward the herbivores. Drying its bracts early to hide its reproductive parts is a good strategy when the stems are exposed to predators for long periods of time, while the other species live in there. Somewhat paradoxically, however, actually relies on animals for pollination. And seed is routed as it accomplishes this when it disguises dead leaf material and emit highly fragrant odors. Sort of attract pollinators. Okay, so what they're saying is that it's not the plant, like the leaves of the plant that matter, it's the fact that they release some type of chemical that then attracts. So the main purpose, though, clearly, guys, I think this is a relatively positive tone. It's an experimental passage about plant life and how it adapts in a similar way to animals. Draws safety of the plant species that rely on photosynthetic activity that is not exploited to sun source in the medium of plants direct plant. Prevents of treading on particular species of plant. So I think it's described as a study illuminating a defensive strategy of a particular species of plant. They talked about the specific species. So if we're talking about a specific species, we have to identify that specific species. It's well known that some animals, species used to camouflage. It can't be answer choice A, because that's talking about 2 through 7 and then 7 through 9, 10 through 13. So we're going to keep going. 2 through 7, it says being eaten, they will survive longer. This may seem like a good strategy for the common name, but no, however, in plants, use of attracting has been well studied. However, variation in pigmentation as means of predatory has received little attention. Actually, it might be talking about predators. I didn't really read that question. I was just seeing the line. actually, wait, it's got to be this one, right? It's got to be A. Well known that some animal species use camouflage to hide from predators. Individuals are able to blend in and avoid being eaten, are able to survive longer, reproduce, and thus increase their fitness. So it's got to be 1 through 5 somewhere. The ability of a species you can effectively. The idea that the ability of a species use camouflage can provide an evolutionary advantage. I actually think it's 2 through 7. Because 2 through 7 says. I think it's 2 through 7, guys. I didn't even read it the first time through, so I was looking for something else. I should obviously read the question before I start it, but you can see that it's middle way through the test. It's so easy to start to falter a bit. The passage indicates that compared with the other functions of coloration in plants, camouflage in plants has. When compared with other functions of coloration in plants. Right, because other functions would be like photosynthesis. They haven't talked about that. This is one that's less studied, right? Who's ever heard of the study of it with plants? They were talking about animals, but then I think it's got to be D for that one. Lines 20 through 21, the references to the tiger and the moth serve mainly to 20 and 21. Because for that last one, guys, in plants, the use of coloration has a vital component, or as a means of attracting pollinators, has been well studied. However, variation appeared as a means of escaping predation, right? So it hasn't been studied. Just to go back to that for a second, might serve a similar purpose as the stripes on a tiger, the gray coloration of the wings of the moth, namely to hide. So it's talking about the camouflage of animals. References provide examples of animals analogous to those of the plant investigated in the passage. Contrast between animals and strategy of the plant. No. Suggest a new possibility of plant research. Defend the work description. That's going to be. I think it's A. Provide examples of animal species with characteristics that serve the same type of camo. It can most reasonably be affirmed that the nutrient requirements of many plants have the constant defensive options. Limiting the plant's defensive options, right? This is all used as a defensive. So they're saying that, but because of the green coloration that these plants that they're studying don't have, right? They don't need that pigment for photosynthesis. They are thus able to survive longer. So 16 through 21, and then 21 through 22 through 25. Specifically, and colleagues empirically investigate whether the dried bracts or on a rare might serve a similar person. Okay, so that looks pretty good. For all the research that needs to live, because it no longer requires photosynthetic pigmentation, it is free to adopt a broader range of possibilities in coloration. Okay. So, actually, guys, I'm not really focused for that one right now, so I'm going to come back to that after I do these next two. Because I didn't feel good about that one. As used in line 28, broader most nearly means. So 28, broader most nearly means. This is a good one to get back on track. Because this plant no longer requires photosynthetic pigmentation, but its own energy, is free to adopt a broader range, a wider range, a larger range, right, than most, and more extensive, more tolerant to more extensive range. It extends, that's obvious, no, or a broader and more extensive range. As used in 48, worked. 48. Furthermore, the experiment demonstrated this chemistry actually worked to hide the plant from its predators and increased its fitness. Actually functioned, actually influenced. It actually worked, right? If you function, it actually works. Actually functioned. I think we plug that back in. That's another technique if you have one of those words in context where you can plug it back in. Furthermore, the experiment demonstrated that this camouflage actually functioned to hide the plant from its predators and increase its fitness. I just plugged that word back in just to confirm because I wasn't 100% sure, but I feel pretty good about that. According to figure 1, the percent reluctance of the flower petal light at a wavelength of 600 nanometers was approximately percent reflectance of the flower petal at a wavelength of 600. Let's go back to figure 1. Figure 1, 600. Looking for percent reflectance, so we're going to go up here of the flower petal. Be careful, guys. We got to make sure we're looking at the right thing. Looks like it's right at about 5. It's pretty easy, right? Those figure questions are pretty easy if you just don't make simple mistakes. I say that now, and I really hope 30 is actually A, and I didn't make a simple mistake. Which statement about reflectance patterns is best supported by the data presented in figure 1? So remember, they don't have a ton of reflectance. They're harder to find. flower petal reflectance pattern tracks close to the bract. No, that didn't work, right? It didn't. Flower petal did not. It was not close to the bract. Leaf litter and bract are close together. The leaf litter shows decreases in relation to increases. No, I don't think so. No. Yes. I think it's 31's going to be D. Reproductive stem is way low and bract is high. Yep. Differ substantially. Whoops. The mean proportion of floral stems with herbivore damage per plant. Plants with in 2007. 2007, guys. Go back to 2007. We're looking for the mean proportion of floral stems. Okay, mean proportion of floral stems with bracts intact. Herbivore damage. Let me go back down here. Intact bracts. So intact bracts. Plants with bracts removed. In 2007, looks like it's at 18 or so, 17 or 18. Hopefully they don't give us both of those. They don't. 0.17. I think it's 0.17. So I'm gonna go back here, guys. Just make sure I'm good on time. 29. Yeah, guys, I'm doing well on time. I'm right where I should be. I'm gonna go back here, and even if I'm running out of time, I'm just reading to read. I understand what the passage is talking about, so I'm not trying to overdo it by overthinking it. It might mean I miss a question here and there, but I just want to make sure. So I'm gonna check mark this because I might come back to it if I have time at the end. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? The previous question said it can most be for the prayers that the nutrient requirements of many plants have the consequence of limiting the plant's defensive options. Okay, so we're looking for something that limits the defensive options. Let's go to 25 through 30 and then mark it off. Resource needs because this plant only requires photosynthesis to produce its own energy, is free to adopt a broader range of possibilities in coloration. So one of the downsides to it, the nutrient requirements of many plants have the consequence of limiting the defense options. Let me just see real quick. Hmm. 16 through 21, guys. Let's go back. It's right here. So that's talking about it. I think it's the next one, though. The one that includes like 27, maybe? 25 through. Because it's talking about the nutrient requirements. Plants have the consequence of limiting the plant's defensive options, but because it doesn't, I think it's got to be C. I don't know, guys, though. That's a hard one, so I'm going to come back to that one if I have time. Let's keep going. Requires no great prudence, so let's see if our teach obedience and the work is done. Still more easy. It's not a straight guide. It requires us to go to the rain. I'm free go with it. You were saying is one consistent work requires much thought. Guys, let me just see who's writing this. Sometimes that helps. So this is Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke, look out for that. In 1790, he was a British politician and scholar. The French formed a new government body known as the National Assembly in the tumultuous period of political and social change. Okay, so he's British, so I think he's probably going to have a pretty strong opinion on the French Revolution, especially in 1790. Perhaps they are not so miserably deficient as they appear. I rather believe it would not put them below the common level. Leaders choose to make themselves bidders in an auction of popularity. Their talents in the construction state will be of no service. They become flatterers instead of legislators. Okay, so what this is saying, it looks like here, guys, is that forming a government based on what the people like, based on complaints or acceptance or whatever it is generally a bad idea because that's not what forms the best government. put them below the common level of human. But when the leaders choose to make themselves in the construction of the state, will be of no service. They become flatterers instead of legislators, the instruments, not the guides of the people. If any of them should happen to propose a scheme of liberty so overly limited and defined with property qualifications, he will be immediately outbid by his competitors who will produce something more splendidly popular. So guys, it's talking about policy and how if you choose something that everybody wants, if you just listen to everybody, then you're going to get the votes. And if you say whatever you want, then you're good. But that doesn't necessarily create the best policy. Suspicions will be raised of his fidelity to his cause. Moderation will be stigmatized as the virtue of cowards. So moderation, so not going all out for one policy, compromises the prudence of traitors until in hopes of preserving the credit which may enable him to temper and moderate. On some occasions, the popular leader is obliged to become active in propagating doctrines and establishing powers of afterwards. Any sort of person which ultimately so is to see nothing wrong to deserve me. I do not deny that among the infinite number of acts of violence apply some good may have done. Who destroy everything should remove some grievance, they make everything new, and chance that they may have something to do them. Kind of which it already has been. Producing. They might, some used to them in the box on the street, but they were such that if they had stood as they were to all eternity, they would a little detract from the happiness of the state. They would little detract. The improvements to the national are superficial, the error is fundamental. So he's saying, he's writing this as a British politician, reflecting on the French Revolution and saying that in certain aspects, having a revolution is a good thing because it might bring to light new things that make a new government a good thing. In this case, he's saying the improvements to the National Assembly are superficial, their error is fundamental. He's saying that this French Revolution was a joke. He's British, so we have to consider that in terms of taking him 1790, right? Brit, that doesn't mean that he's necessarily in love with France. For the history buffs out there, whatever they are, I wish my countrymen rather to recommend to our neighbors the example of the British Constitution and take models. Of course, he's loving the idea of recommending the British Constitution. In the former, they have gotten an invaluable treasure. They are not, I think, without some cause of apprehension and complaint, but they do not owe to their Constitution but their own conduct. I think our happy situation owing to our Constitution, but owing to the whole of it, and not to any part singly, owing to agreement as well. Our people will find employment enough for a truly patriotic, free, and independent spirit in guarding what they possess from violation. I don't see alteration neither, but even when I change, it should be preserved. I should be led to by great grievance. By great grievance. What I did, I should follow the example of our ancestors to make the reparations as soon as possible to style the building, politic caution and guard deserved, or rather a complex timidity were among the ruling principles of our forefathers and the most decided conduct, not being women. Tell us they have got so much to share. They acted under strong impression of the ignorance and infallibility of mankind. He made them thus infallible, rewarded them for having in their conduct their nature. Let us add, if we please. They have got so much to share. They acted under a strong impression of the ignorance and infallibility of mankind. He rewarded them for having their kind to let us take their preserve their fortune or to retain their bequest. Let us add, if we please, but let us preserve what they have. Saying the firm ground of the British country, let us be satisfied, to admire rather than to attempt to follow in desperate flights of the aeronauts of France. Okay, so he's not in favor of this. Burke is pretty so with the National Assembly to soon limit the king's power, expand, says, seek the approval of the public. Yep. So if you understand what's going on here, right, he doesn't like the fact that the National Assembly, the French National Assembly, is trying to seek the approval of the public, because he says that's not a good system of government, because everybody's going to always want something. 34 provides the best evidence for the answers to the previous. I read it here, so it should be. There's an auction probably tons of things. So like 16, 15 through 20, somewhere in there. 10 through 13, 15 through 20. I think it's got to be here. Let's just go back and make sure. 5 through 10. Yeah, I think 13 through 18. As used in line 17, instruments. So 17, let's go back. Instruments, common level, but when the leaders choose to make themselves bidders in an auction, flatterers, the instruments, not the guides of the people. So they're being manipulated. Tools, yep, instruments. They will be tools of the people. Based on the passage, Burke believes the French leaders who would advocate moderate positions are brave, but unlikely to be trusted, cowardly, but are likely to be praised, virtuous, but are likely to be ignored, sensible, but are likely to be undermined. So, brave, but are likely to be distrusted, maybe. I remember them saying that. Moderation will be stigmatized as the virtue of the coward, and compromise as the prudence of traitors, until in hopes of preserving the credit, may enable him to temper and moderate on occasions. Popular leaders obliged to become active in propagating doctrines of so much power that afterwards defeat any sober purpose. Brave, but are likely to be distrusted. I think it's A, because cowardly, but they're likely to be praised. I don't think so. Virtuous, but they're likely to be ignored. Let's see. I gotta come back to 36. That's a hard question, guys, but let's keep going. Let's use line 30. Sober most nearly means presuming credit. 30. Doctrines of establishing powers that will afterwards defeat any sober purpose at which he ultimately might have aimed. Any rehabilitated, any reasonable purpose. That's just any reasonable purpose at which. So it's saying that by doing all of these things, it will afterwards defeat any reasonable purpose at which he ultimately might have aimed. Become active in propagating doctrines, establishing powers that will afterwards defeat any sober purpose. Okay. Burke's central claim in the last paragraph is that the British have failed to take effective measures to safeguard their rights, acted wisely to revise rather than replace their political system. I think so. Right? He's saying acted wisely. Let's see. Yeah, altered and super. So he's saying that the good stuff about it have acted wisely to revise rather than replace their political system. Yeah, Burke refers to the repair of the building. Line 70 to make the point. 70 through 72. I changed it I should be led to my remedy by a great grievance. And what I did, I should follow the example of our ancestors, so I would make the reparation as nearly as possible the style of the building, caution and guarded service, rather than a complexional timidity were among the ruling principles. So government need to be changed periodically to remain relevant. If a government has fundamental errors, it should be replaced. All governments have flaws that may be corrected with proper intervention. Government's essential changes to a government should maintain that government's essential properties. Right? He's saying don't change the whole thing. Leave it be. Passage, leave it be, but make small, moderate changes. And what I did, I should follow the example of our ancestors. I would make the as nearly as possible in the style of the building. So you're making little minor things, but you're not knocking the building down. In the passage, Burke displays the greatest respect for which of the following: the British voting public, British leaders of past generations, British citizens who were inspired by the French, leaders of France's former government. I think it's British leaders of past generations, right? He says we just read that, didn't we? He says, in what I did, I should follow the example of our ancestors. I would make the representatives part of the style, guarded terms, more rather than complexion was among the ruling principles of our forefathers in their most decided conduct, not being illuminated with the light of which the gentlemen of France tell us they have got so abundant to share. They acted under a strong impression of the ignorance. I think he really seems to like the British leaders of past generations. I think that's right. And I think it shows up in those lines I just read. I keep going back to the same line. Let's see, what lines do they give us? I think it's the last one. 81 through 84, I think is the only one, right? He that had made them fallible, them for kind of to let us imitate their caution. If we wish to deserve the fortune to retain their bequest, let us add, if we please, but let us preserve what they have left, and staying on the firm ground. I think he's definitely 81 through 84. Right? That's who he's with greatest respect for those guys. Burke's attitude towards the gentlemen of France would best be described as sympathetic, envious. Let's see, 76 through 77. So not being illuminated with the light of which the gentlemen of France tell us they have got some. They act under a strong percent ignorance and fallibility. Ignorance is a pretty strong word. So the gentlemen of France would be best described as scornful, envious. I think it's got to be this one, envious. He's definitely not envious, and he's definitely not sympathetic. And I think apprehensive is too. Ignorance is a much stronger word. I think that's got to be the right answer. All right, let's go through this last passage. Let's see how much time I have left. And We got 1550, guys. So just by reading and really staying focused, if you're not a great reader, this is very, very dense, but I'm gonna have a chance to go back to questions that I may have missed in the past or ones that I circled. But just by being focused and answering questions based on the tone of the passage, really reading, like some of these you'll notice that I'm not even going back really that hard because I think that I'm doing it right. I think I answered the questions to the best of my ability according to the passage. If I didn't, then I live and I learn and I go back to the drawing board, but I don't hang my head about it. I just keep working to try to get better at it. So I think I got a lot of these right. If I didn't, it is what it is. But I want to make sure that you guys know that you don't want to hang your head if you get caught up on a hard question. Just move on like I've been doing. I can come back, and even if I don't come back, the idea that those questions are hard, like I think those questions are hard, if I maintain that idea, then if I have to skip them at the end, who cares? Right? I thought those were the hardest questions, so those are the ones I would skip or I would want to skip if I was running out of time or if I was in trouble because I already thought those were hard. I don't want to sacrifice easy questions later in the test because I'm just so caught up with one question. I think one or two times I've stopped and really had to think for a second, and then I've just moved on from other questions. I really want you guys to be thinking about that. Okay, so 43, at the 2007 American Geophysical Union's meeting in Acapulco, Mexico, some 2,000 scientists present multiple counter aspects above or on asking was across the northern continent, cutting to produce the point for next one. The idea explains. Oh, guys, by the way, this is a passage 1-2 question passage. Whenever you have these, the questions are generally in order. So see if you can do all of the passage 1 questions until they mention passage 2 in a question, and then go back and read passage 2. So just try to compartmentalize these. The team argues that the idea explains multiple observations on the climate cooling and disappearance of the Clovis hunters, but also the near simultaneous extinction of continent's large mammals. Not all will be convinced. Several leading hypotheses already explained each of these 3 events: a change in ocean circulation during time to brought about the concept of the millennium-long cooling, which is known to the younger giant. Climate do not cause the Clovis hunters to disappear, and if they had not previously been killed by disease or hunted to extinct, the big prehistoric beasts may also doomed by this change in climate. New evidence comes in the form of the geochemical analysis of sedimentary layers of 25 features of the layers. So the team suggests that they contain debris formed by an extraterrestrial impact. These include the spherules and amounts of the element iridium. I think they're talking about, going back to these include this, right? This idea, extraterrestrial means that's the asteroid they're referring to. These include spherules, gas, and carbon. The amounts of the element in addition, the rocks contain black layers of carbon material, which the team says are the remains of the wildfires that occurred after the impact of the asteroid. Okay, so let's go back now to passage number 1 and see if we can answer any of these questions, or to the questions that Okay, so you guys can see here what I'm talking about. With number 43, all of these answer choices just refer to lines that occur in passage 1. So it provides the best support for the claim that the impact hypothesis is not the only possible explanation for the sudden change. It was that this paragraph, so not all will be convinced. So somewhere in here, 15 through or 13 through 23. So anything that's outside of that range, I think we can eliminate. So definitely these two, because that's not talking about. I think it's got to be 15 through 17. Now, several leading up, I've already explained each of these 3 events. Is generally thought to have brought about the onset of the millennium-long cooling, which is this cooling might cause the cooling to disappear. Okay, not the only possible explanation. I think it's got to be 15 through 17. Okay, so 15 through 17, based on passage 1. So you guys can see how these are kind of in order. Which hypothetical discovery would provide the most support for the impact hypothesis? Asteroid impact crater beneath the northern ice cap contains high levels of iridium. Let's see, what's that first paragraph? Some 2,7% multiple. These are common southern above or on the northern ice cap, showering debris across North American continent. Temperatures to plunge for the next millennium. Okay, asteroid impact crater beneath the northern ice cap contains high levels of iridium. Has been dated well over the start of the younger giants. Glass and carbon sphericals appear at multiple points in the geology, but never in the conjunction with the iridium deposits. You see this again. Okay, so on the northern ice cap, high levels of iridium and has been dated to well after the start of the Younger Dryas. Glass and carbon spectrals appeared at multiple points in the geology, but never in the conjunction with iridium. No. Analysis of ice cores suggests the global temperature started declining recently before the onset. That could be a different reason. High levels of osmium, which is rare on Earth, but relatively common on asteroids, are observed in the geologic area from approximately 13,000 years ago, which is rare on Earth, but common asteroids are observed. After, no, it wouldn't. It's got to be this one, right? From approximately 13,000 years ago. That would usually support that because they said it was almost 13,000. If it was after this occasion, then this could have been the reason for it. So we got to eliminate A for that reason, I think. 45, according to passage 1, the team of scientists believe that the black carbonate material found in certain sedimentary layers was caused by which phenomenon following a cosmic collision? I think it was climate cooling, but let's confirm. Seems that they contain debris formed by next to these include sphericals, too high to originate. In addition, the rocks contain black liquor, which the team says are the remains of wildfires that swept. Oh, never mind. Wildfires that swept across the continent, rapidly spreading fires. Okay. As used in line 42, let's go to 42 and see if we're to. Yep. Okay. So now line 42 is what they just mentioned, and that leads us into passage number 2. So now we have to go back and we're going to read passage 2. You guys will notice that I'm not that concerned with time. If I have to guess, I still have a lot of time left, and I knew that going to this last passage. But if I do have to guess, it's not a huge deal because I feel confident in the ones that we've already answered. Proponents of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis claim various kinds of evidence for the hypothesis, including deposit of the element iridium, found in meteorites. Oh, I thought the Younger Dryas was. Oh, maybe they're saying. Sites in which the various some project called Clovis points used by some of the earliest Americans mammals beginning about 13,000. That's a big number and have been found. The team argues that when the quality and accuracy of the dating, which is based on radiocarbon energies, is examined closely, only 3 of the 29 sites fall within the time frame of the Younger Dryas onset of 12,008. Which are really either earlier or later by hundreds. In one case, thousands. The post-Younger Dryas impact fails on both theoretical and empirical grounds. The impact is probably due to the way that it provides simple explanations for complex giant chunks of space debris clobbering the planet and wiping out life on Earth is undeniably broad appeal. No one in Hollywood makes movies about more nuanced explanations, such as Clovis points disappearing because early Americans turned to the other forms of stone tool technology as the large mammals they were hunting went extinct as a result of the changing climate or hunting pressure. Both spectrums appear and move. By the new study, we still stand fully behind, which is based on more than a confluence of dates. Radiocarbon dating is a perilous process. Economists adding that the presence of Clovis artifacts in mammoth bones, just under the claimed uridium, nanodiamond, and magnetic sphere deposit is a more reliable indicator than an extraterrestrial disappearance. Indicator that an extraterrestrial response was okay. So you're saying sharply 42. I remembered reading that just because I was paying attention. These claims were sharply contested, so we're very, very promptly, strongly contested. I think. Promptly is quickly, suddenly, and promptly, I think are two so strongly contested. Based on passage 2, Meltzer and his team relied on what evidence to challenge the Younger Dryas. A reevaluation of the dates assigned to sites thought to display signs. Discovery of additional Clovis artifacts on a host of sites besides the 20. Nope. That's to show that dino damage can occur in geologic lacking. Nope. Lacking indication of high concentrations that have been found in sedimentary layers beneath the proposed impact layer. I think it was a reevaluation of the dates, right? Because they said a lot of those dates actually didn't fall within the right time. Yeah, I think it's a reevaluation of the dates assigned to sites. Which has the best evidence for the answer to the previous question. The team argues that when the quality and accuracy of the dating, 35 through 41. I don't think that was it. No, I think it was like 45 through 48 maybe. For example, some say that nanodiamonds are common in ordinary now. Paper published recently in a team led by David Meltzer. The Allison study looks at the dating of 29 different sites in the Americas in which impact advocates have reported evidence for cosmic collision. So 29 different dates. I think it's 60. That was 62 through 69. They include sites in which sophisticated by some of the earliest American mammals have been found. The team has an quality and accuracy of the dating, which was based on radiochromatin. Is examined closely on 3 of the sites to fall within time frame. The onset of up to the rest were probably either earlier or later by hundreds, and in one case thousands of years. So I think it's that 62 through 69 lines. The phrase more nuanced contrasts most directly with which word in quote. More nuanced means more nuanced is complex, right? It's more complex if it's more nuanced. More nuanced contrast. Oh, most direct. What does it contrast most directly with which word in his quoted remarks in 70 through 77? I think it's got to be simple then. I wasn't reading again. You got to be careful, guys. Simple explanations for complex problems. He doesn't want. Okay, so then I think it's contrast most with simple. The word simple. I was thinking it was a similar, right? It was a synonym, but it's actually an antonym. Reservation between the two passages. Passage 2 presents a critique of the central hypothesis described in passage 1. Yes. Passage 2 explains the scientific question addressed by the central hypothesis. Explains. Nope. Discuss the possible implications of the central. Nope. Evidence in favor. No. Presents critique of the central hypothesis in passage 1. Yeah. Right, because there's detractors to it. The author of both passages says unsupported by reliable evidence, interesting but difficult to conclusively evaluate, more appealing to the public than to specialists. Both passages interesting but difficult, controversial in the scientific impact. Let me see. What did they say? Yeah, I think it's got to be that one, because remember he talks about there are detractors to this in the first passage. Controversial. They say there's detractors in that. In the first passage we read about that. If Meltzer's findings are accurate, what can most reasons be inferred with the glass and carbon sphericals mentioned in the last paragraph of passage 1? They could have been formed at a time other than the beginning of the Younger Dryas. They're a product of global cooling that occurred during the Younger. Nope. They're found in highest concentration at close. Tool technology of the close. Could have been formed at a time other. I think that was formed at. That's the whole thing was about based on the dates for the second passage. So I think that's right. I hope that's right. I think we're doing okay on time, guys. I felt pretty good about that. I've been pretty focused all the way through. We have to go back to a few questions, so let's do that now, and then I think we're good to go, and we'll grade it and get you guys on your way. So hopefully more than anything, well, before I start just yapping, and if by any chance I've gotten all of these questions right so far, I want to make sure that I get these last 2 right and don't lose focus. There was one that I circled up here, remember? Or maybe didn't even answer. 13, yeah, as used in line 9, illusion most nearly means. So line 9, again, the good news is I can always come back to this one. Psychological scientists have a name for this easy, automatic, simplistic thinking. The illusion of explanatory depth. We strongly believe that we understand complex matters. So let's plug in these answers. The misconception, the illusion, I think that's right. The dream of, no, it's not the dream. The charade, the misconception of explanatory depth. We strongly believe I think it might be charade. The charade of the misconception. I think it's charade. I don't know, guys. That's a hard one. I think it's got to be charade though, because it's negative. Misconception is suggesting that there's some like level of mistake or like apologies that you can make with that one. I think that we can go with that. Okay, so let's do 26 through 26 and 28. Most reasonably inferred. Just make sure how much time am I looking at? Oh no. 132. Okay, let's do 26. It can most reasonably be inferred from the passage that the nutrient requirements of many plants have the consequence of 16 through 21. Let's read that. I'm using colleagues in predicting emphasis whether the dried bracts on a rare woodland plant might serve a similar purpose as the stripes. Okay, so 15 through 21 I think makes sense, but 16, limiting the plant's defensive options. It's a fascinating plant species that relies extremely because this plant no longer requires photosynthetic, so that's nutrient pigmentation, to produce its own energy. It's free to adopt a broader range of possibilities, much like fungi or animals. Using a larger population, Clistern and colleagues experimentally removed the dried bracts that cover flower beds of these. The bracts are a brown color that resembles. So that's just explaining it. I think it's got to be that one that I just highlighted. 20 was that 25 through 30? If it was, I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, I think it has to be 25 through 30. I'm gonna stick with that one, guys. And yeah, let's see how we did. So we finished with a little bit of time left. Let me just make sure, actually, before I do that, before I say all that, that I didn't just skip a question earlier. Not that it really matters at this point because I've been yapping. No. That was B, but I circled that. B, C, C, B, D, D, 1, B, C, C, got all those, I think. A, C, C. Whoops. Okay, there goes my time, guys. Hopefully I got them all. I don't remember skipping anymore. Oh, but I wanted to come back to 36. Dang it. Dang it, guys. Shoot. Let's see if we got, if 36 is wrong and I just was spending time at the end there talking, that's unfortunate and frustrating. Let's see how I did though, guys. Hopefully I got most of these right. Yeah, I mean, I felt okay about it. I hope that last one, I really hope that number 36, if that was the only one that I missed, that would be pretty frustrating. Only because you can see how I'm like kind of tired, guys. To be honest, that was tiring. It always is. The reading section is so dense. I'm going to just be frustrated with myself at the end if I did happen to get them all right. I don't know if I did, so that might be maybe somewhat of an arrogant statement to think that I did get them all right before actually looking at them. But what would be frustrating is that you guys know how dense these passages are. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You don't want to be thinking about timing. You'll notice that I didn't think about timing very often while I was reading that. And I mean, hopefully it worked out well in terms of getting more questions right. But if you're not focused on timing and you're really focused on reading, they give you plenty of time, but you can't start to drift. And if you do find yourself starting to drift, just move on from the question, okay? So let's see here. I'm going to mark in red this time. So number 1 is A, that's great. Number 1 is A, number 2 is D, number 3 is A. I can see I got an A there. Okay, let's see. 4 was C. Yep, I'm going to not mark because it's hard. Number 5 was B, 6 was C. Most reading for the seal knows the answer to which I had B. Was 7 B? It didn't show up on my iPad. Okay, 7 was B. I did get that. 8 was A. It didn't look like it was going to show up. 9 was D. 10 was C. Okay, so I got all those ones right. It didn't show up on my iPad as I'm scrolling down here. I know I mark up the page, so I was like, what is going on here? There we go. It's just I thought I just skipped 11 and then I was yapping at the end, so I was going to be frustrated, but it looked like it's loaded now. Okay, so 11 I said B, great, that was right. 12 was B. Dang it, 13 was A. Shoot. 13 was A. I should have gone with misconception. Why did I go with charade? 14, C, 15. Again, I keep scrolling. 15 was C, 16 was D, 17 was D, 18 was B, 19 was D. Why did I not go with charade? Why did I not go with misconception? I thought that's what it was right off the top of my head, and I just tried to overthink it. I don't know why I did that. It is what it is. 20 guys is C, 21 is A, so I felt good through those. 22, let's see, 22, as it's popping up here, it's going slowly. 22 is C, 23 is B, 24 was D, great, 25 was A, 26 was B, 27 was C, great, I felt good about those, so that's good that I came back to those. That was going to be a hard one. 28, let's see, 28 was A, 29 was C, 30 was A, 31 was D, 32 was B. Okay, that's good, so I feel good about those. I'm trying to scroll somewhat slowly here so it loads. 33, it's a long video. 33, as we look 33 and mark up the page, 33 was C. 33 was C. 34 was C. 35 was B. Okay, so you guys see those pile up. 35 was B. 36 Dang it, 36 was D. Okay, so that was the other one that I didn't feel great about. That's okay. Let's keep going. 37 was D, 38 was B, 39 was D. 40 was 40. So you guys can see I should have gone with misconception. 36 was a hard problem, guys. I just didn't feel great about it. So look, that happens. That was a really hard problem. When I read that, all of those choices seemed pretty straightforward. It seemed pretty similar to me, so I just didn't love that. All of these are right. 40 was B, 41 was D, 42 was A. But I just didn't feel great about number 36, so I moved on from it. I got it wrong, but I didn't let it affect me at all. At the end of the test, yes, I didn't get a chance to look at it, but it was wrong. I probably should have come back to it, but it was a hard question, right? That's a hard question, and you just kind of live and you learn on those situations. So don't overthink that. 43 was B, 44 was D, 45 was C. 45 was C. I remember this one, even though it's slow to load. 46 was also C, which is great. 47 was A. 48 was D. 49 was B. 50 was A. So we're looking good going into the last two here. 51, and then we'll provide a full score. For those that have watched the writing and language video, we will provide, or you guys can go back and look at that one and hopefully see confirm that I got it. I encourage you guys to go back and watch the writing and language video. 51 was D and 52 was A. So great, guys. I mean, so we missed the one question. No, we missed two questions. I'm sorry. We missed two questions. One, I really felt like I should have gone with misconception. That one's going to be a bummer, but it is what it is. You move on. So on this test then, we got 50 out of 52. Okay, so that would be A. Go all the way back here to the beginning. You guys can see how dense it is. So for those students that are are looking to improve from a 750 to 800, that's a really dense test. So between this test, I got 50 out of 52. It probably should have been 51. I should have gone with misconception. The other one, 36, that's a really hard question, but I'm really proud of myself for moving on from that question. Yeah, I missed it, but I got all of the other questions right because I skipped it. Because I wasn't overwhelmed with that question, I just move on from it. It is what it is in the moment, and you live to fight another day. But don't think that one difficult question should affect the rest of the test. That's the whole point. Okay, so 50 out of 52 on the reading section was an equivalent of a 380. For those that have watched our writing and language video, writing and language video was a 400, so I lucked out there in getting all those questions right. And so total, guys, was a 780 on the whole test. Again, that's great. I did as well as I could. It was a dense passage. You do as well as you can, and then you live to fight another day. But don't beat yourself up over one question like 36. You'll notice that one of the things that really worked for me there, despite maybe needing to spend a little bit more time on that at the end, or really thinking about misconception, I started to get tired. That was part of the reason why I probably didn't focus on that last one as much as I should have. But you live and learn. You got 50 out of 52 questions right. You did a great job. Just keep staying focused, guys. Don't lose sight that you can get better at this always. You can be a better reader. You can be more focused. I just want you guys to recognize that more than anything else, that this is not going to define you, that it's the moment that you're out of this test, you can go and you can do whatever you want to do, right? It's Saturday afternoon. Right? Everything is still, the world is still turning. Just make sure you focus on that more than anything else. You live to fight another day. Maybe we'll get an 800 next time, maybe not, but at least I was focused all the way and I didn't let one question affect me. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of that. Make sure, please, that you guys download the Star U app. We're really, really hopeful that you guys will do that because we think that you'll be able to do practice problems as you go. You can kind of see that I'm tired. This is really dense, right? You guys, I know what you guys have to go through. So again, make sure that you're not letting the hardest question on the test affect you. Get the rest of the questions right. If you miss the hardest one, you miss it. It is what it is. We move on. You call it a day. The world is still turning. The moment you get out of the SAT, you can go hang out with your friends. You can go have fun. Don't let this define you, okay? Make sure you download the app. All of this content that we've created, everything that helps me do well on these tests is in the book. Now it's on your phone and it's all free. Please download, watch our writing and language video, watch the Math Without a Calculator videos before the next test, and we hope to see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and we'll see you soon. See you later.